Open up your heart. Let your feelings show. You believe in love, and you're prepared to grow together.
Good evening and welcome to The Art of Healing. I'm Alexa Major, and tonight I'm joined by the creator of this series, Jonathan Lowe, and the program's most long-standing host, Bill O'Donnell, in the beginning of a retrospective of the past 10 years of this series. Hi, gentlemen.
Hello. Hi, Alexa.
You have produced, Jonathan, over 100 programs in connection with this series. What was the inspiration behind or the passion that led you to creating a program on healing here in Santa Fe?
Probably began when I was just traveling around the country in the late 1980s. And I was in Sedona, Arizona at the time. And healing seemed to be an issue for me personally. Not so much physical healing, but certainly spiritual and emotional healing. And I just started doing video in the early 80s. And I was interested in finding out what healers were doing, why they were doing it, whether it worked. So I was kind of already videotaping people and asking them to share their story, their techniques. Partly for my own personal growth, but also because I was doing video, I wanted to share it. So whatever I was finding, I wanted to then pass it on. When I came to Santa Fe, they were just about to begin public access, and it was like a perfect vehicle to spread the word.
That's wonderful. And you began this program back in 1988.
Yeah, 88 was when public access went on the air, and I met a guy called Steve LeBlanc, who was also interested in doing a healing program, and we hooked up and did probably the first 5 shows together. And also a woman called Rhea Goodman. She was like volunteering to be on the table, receiving healings, and then sharing her experience. So that's how it began, 10 years ago.
And who was your first guest? What was the first topic? Do you remember?
First guest, I think, was Don Van Houten.
So all I'm doing here is listening with my hands. And I'll do this at several points in the body to observe and to attune myself to the system, as opposed to going after the body with an attitude of, well, let's see how I can fix this. I find it more valuable to see what's the body have to say about itself first.
And it was what they called connective tissue polarity. And that was part of the reason I wanted to do it, was because you hear all these terms being bandied around, connective tissue polarity, what the heck does that mean? So interviewing him and finding out what it meant, and then being able to share that with whatever audience used to watch public access back in 1988. I would imagine only a few people for a number of different reasons. You know, the quality of the broadcast wasn't that great then, and the quality of what I could shoot and edit was VHS. And so even though we knew it was a small audience, we felt like we were trying to build towards something. And back then, I thought that within a couple of years, I would be able to put together an hour program that summarized what healing was, and that everyone in the country would want to buy one. Of course, that was many years ago.
Right.
And it didn't quite pan out. I'm still hoping to make that 1-hour program that will just really turn people on to how to heal themselves.
Right.
But
well,
it's a tricky one,
yeah.
doing something like that.
You certainly have enough information now, though, and
you would think so,
a gallery to do
Maybe
that.
too much.
And Bill, when did you join the team of this program? When did you start getting involved?
I met Jonathan at a televenture meeting, which was a group that came aboard to came together to try and restore public access. It actually had started briefly about 6 or 7 years before, and I had just come into town, and we actually did a piece that aired, and I never saw it, but then they went dormant for about 6, 7 years, and then came right online. They were waiting for Jonathan to come to town. Anyhow, so we met at a television meeting, and then he had a premonition as we met that something was going to happen with us. And in our conversation, he found out that I was studying naturopathy with the late Dr. Shear at the time, and he had heard a lot about Dr. Shear and wanted to do a show on him. And so I think he asked me if I'd arrange it or something like that, and we did, and that was the first show we did together, I believe, in January of what, 88, 87? Yeah, it's spraying out here in the back. There it is.
Hello, I'm Bill O'Donnell, and this is Healing in Santa Fe. Today we're at the clinic of Dr. J. Victor Scherer, a living treasure here in Santa Fe and well known throughout the Southwest and around the country as a preeminent healer in his field of naturopathy and massage and other related alternative healing techniques. Dr. Shear has been in the business for many years, and it's an honor for us to be here today on a beautiful day in Santa Fe. So if you'd like to come inside, Dr. Shear is waiting for us. Okay.
Yeah.
Nice to see you again.
Nice to see you.
Okay, well, thank you for taking the time out of your busy schedule to visit with us for Healing in Santa Fe.
Well, I'm here for service.
Yeah? How long have you actually been at this location?
I've been here for about 20 years.
20 years.
Yeah.
And you've been in other locations around
Well,
town?
I had one down on San Francisco Street at 420. I was there for about 35 years. So you started this around 53. About the same time I started the school. I had a clinic and I had people from all over the country coming for all kinds of treatment. This is our clinic, and we have the light therapy equipment. This is our large light. I just happen to have a pink light in there now.
Okay, this is color therapy?
This is color therapy.
Tell us a little bit about what is color therapy?
Color therapy goes way back from the beginning of time. You know, it was used by the native people. They used to take flowers and squeeze the juice out of them. For pneumonia, they would put the sunflower, which is a sort of a golden color. They used to squeeze the juice, put it over the chest, which helped pneumonia, and they'd lay out in the sun. Now, if they had intestinal disturbances, they would put green or lemon color on their stomach to increase peristaltic action. See, color has been used for centuries. And my mother used it years ago, you know. And she has had some little lights, which I'll show you a little later on.
Okay.
Now, this pink light here is compassion, and it takes away the... this is the most modern equipment you can get today. It has the pink, it brings God and compassion, and it has people to, it gives unconditional forgiveness. When they lay under this, they just feel uplifted, and they get rid of all their resentment and hard feelings. Now, I use the blue light to stop pain. I use the green light to pull out infection. The indigo light is what shrinks up tumors and stops hemorrhages.
Here we are in one of Dr. Shear's treatment room, and we are joined at present with Dr. Mary Jayne Townsend, who is our client for the day for this purpose of demonstration. And Dr. Townsend is interning here at Dr. Shear's clinic. And she's also a naturopathic physician, massage therapist, color therapist, and colon therapist, I believe. All right, Dr. Shear, what is it that you want to demonstrate to us
Well, I
today?
want to demonstrate and show how people can be taken out of shock, how you can detect whether the person is in shock and how you take them out. And because we're losing many people every day from trauma and shock that is ignored in most of the hospitals. When a person, so I want to show how there's an old method that was used years ago in Poland and the polarity and things like that. That's very safe and very wonderful. I want to demonstrate how you take people out of shock because it's extremely important. See, the first thing you do is the range of motion is down this way to test. See the energy flowing from this side of the brain to this side of the body sometimes is locked off in shock because the solar plexus is just in spasm, and it cuts off the energy from this lobe of the brain. And the system I'll show you how to take that person out of shock is to reestablish the flow of energy from the right side of the brain to the left side of the body, and vice versa from this side to that side. It's a procedure to go through that takes them out. So now the way you test to see whether the person's in shock or not is you raise the leg here and raise the arm here. Now I'm going to push down. Don't look at me, look straight up. Now you resist while I push down, see. Now you see, this lady is in a state of shock because it went down easy. The energy is not there like it should be. So she's still in some, there's several different types of shock. There's extreme shock, there's mild shock, and then there's delayed shock. Now she has a little bit of what we call a delayed shock from an experience several weeks ago or several months, and she's still in a state of shock. So the first thing we do is right here at the this big artery here, which is called the femoral artery, and at the top of the head here, see, at this lobe of the brain. Now we hold that until we get a good strong pulse. Now this stimulates and reestablishes the flow of energy from the right side to the left side of the body. It crosses over. And you have to hold that till you get a good strong pulse. See?
So is a current actually, are you experiencing current between your hand
Yeah,
and the other hand?
I feel a strong pulse when everything is working right. When there's no, now there's just a faint pulse there now, it's not strong enough. See, so I hold this and establish. See, a lot of people don't understand that we have what the East Indian people call prana in the body. And in China and Japan and also the Orient, they call it chi energy.
What is chi or prana?
Chi energy and prana is very similar to the what is called the lymph circulation in the body. See, we have 5 pints of blood in the body, but you have 3 times as much, or 2/3 more, of the lymph circulation in the body. And this is what's very much neglected in this country. This is what causes a lot of accumulation in the, causes cancer and tumors and everything like that, because the stifled up energy in the chi or the lymph circulation. Now the Germans and the Russian people in the Orient, you pay much more attention to this than the American doctors do. Now I'm getting a strong pulse, see. So then I go over to this side and I hold that. See, you go on the opposite side and then to the same side. And I hold this till I get a good strong pulse.
So you change positions from the right to the
Yeah.
left, and then
Yeah.
also at the
First
forehead?
you go on the opposite side, and then you go on to the same side.
What is the point that you're holding there on the forehead?
The forehead is a lobe, the right lobe of the brain.
So then that's been about 10 years ago?
Right. And actually what we're looking at right now is the first program that the two of you worked on together. Is that
It's
correct?
the first time we actually were on opposite ends of the video camera at the same time.
Wonderful.
All right. That was the first one, wasn't it?
I think so. It's hard to remember now after all these years. But ironically, it turned out to be a prophetic. It was also his first 2-parter. I said, we can't do this in one. Let's do it. And he says, fine. And so we did. And you know, Dr. Shear was a legend even at that time, and it was near the end of his life. So now we really are thankful for all the footage that we have for him, and perhaps that could be true for others as well as time goes on.
Okay, here we are in Dr. Shear's colon therapy room, and tell us about your equipment.
Now this equipment here is the finest equipment. It's a Dr. Spencer helped me build this. It's custom made. There are very few of these on the market, only ones that we built. Now it has a tank here, and the water flows up into that tank, and then we have a speculum that goes into the patient as they're lying on that table. This is where we can control the temperature gauge. By putting it in that position, the water in this tank maintains about 100 degrees. And then by putting it over here, we can bring it down to about 65. The reason for that is hot water expands and cold water contracts. And on the lining of the colon, there's a lot of times a thick film. And by changing you break down, the expansion and contraction breaks this substance from the walls of the intestinal tract.
So that's the advantage of a colonic?
The colon. Yeah, that's the main thing. And then we have a system here whereby putting this in, the water backs up into the colon, and then by loosening this here, that opens up this so the water flows back out again.
Mm-hmm. So you began with the Dr. Shear and the naturopathy and have since covered many more healing modalities. Are there any modalities in particular that you found interesting that brought up moments that you recall from working on so many programs covering so many aspects of healing?
Well, you're right. There's so many, and I grew up in an AMA household, so I was used to seeing, sort of normal medicine and its relationship. My dad literally used to go off and do house calls when we were kids, and did a lot of that kind of thing, and drugs and antibiotics and all that and what it did. So, but I'd already been interested in alternative healing and natural health care for a long time. So this was a natural, and I believe, like Jonathan, I caught the vision right away, because I felt that unless we got this information out, that it wouldn't be available except for to a small group of people who just happened, by the grace of God, to bump into it. And I had seen a lot of the shortcomings of medicine as we know it, regular medical practice. So I thought this was really important to get the word out. So one thing led to another. One show we both enjoyed doing, and the next thing we know, we were doing more and more all the time.
Mm-hmm. And after all these years, what does healing mean to you, Jonathan? Has it changed since you began working on this program, or has it become more defined for you? What is healing? What is the art?
And it's funny you would say, what is healing? Because that was actually when I was in Sedona. The show that I began back then, before I got to Santa Fe, was called What is Healing? And I would just go around to people and say to them, what is healing? With the camera rolling, and see what they said.
Keeping an optimistic outlook on everything and be very positive and try to eat right.
Like physician, heal thyself. And if you are able, if you have the strength and the willpower to think that positively, you're well.
A healthy mind has more of the chance of succeeding if it has a healthy body, in order to keep the whole system on a balanced, nutritious plane, I guess. So imagine that healing actually takes a lot of forms, whether you talk about healing yourself personally, or healing your friends, or healing the whole shebang. But I think it all starts with the very basic thing, and that is what we put inside ourselves, which is our diet.
I think of the planet right away. I think of each individual as healing themselves, which is going towards healing the planet as a whole. And so as far as my own healing goes, I think it's just healing body, mind, and spirit, healing your emotions, healing the anger that we feel, all the different things that create disease. It's healing from the inside, from the core of what you feel about yourself and life. And that's it. I don't know. That's a funny question.
I always think of that old adage, ours is not to question why, ours is but to do or die. It used to bother me for many years, that saying, but I think that in the doing, we somehow get the healing. We heal ourselves through work, through creativity.
Healing, to me, it's the same as living. It's just a process of change, and sort of relates to some positive condition, I suppose. But people say that negative things are healing towards positive, and there's good things to be seen in everything. So I say healing would be, well, let's think about this.
It's a great mystery, because there's something deep inside my soul that says that we all have a God-given right to be fully healed and fully whole and all that we can be, and yet so few people actually are. And it seems to me that something's been built into humanity that has caused us to hold ourselves back, caused us to be constricted compared to what we would be if we were fully free to be all that we are. I think there are many levels of the reason why that's happened, and I think every modality that we've looked at and every modality we haven't even got to yet deals with some aspect of the whole picture. And for me, healing is not only feeling totally whole and healthy and fit and strong, but it's also what you're doing in life so that you're actually fulfilling your mission, your destiny. And I think it's a lot to do with God too, in the sense of how your relationship with God is. So I would say, yes, I found out some things from 10 years of doing this, but I feel like the journey is yet young, and there's a long way to go.
When you began the program's title was Healing in Santa Fe.
Mm-hmm.
It later changed to The Art of Healing. What is the significance of that change?
Well, actually, I was in England at the time, 1990, and we were doing groups of people doing what I call video theraplay, which was where we would videotape people sharing about where they were in their lives and what their problems were and what their relationship difficulties were and what their physical problems were and so on. And then they would see the video, and it would be a group situation, and then each member of the group would give feedback to each other individual.
The feedback that one is able to have from the group is phenomenally helpful, because particularly if you're critical, you are able to see yourself with irrefutable evidence in another light, and you see yourself through other people's eyes and what they're able to pick up. I was astounded at how much one missed. We all witness everybody else's interview, but when the camera's rolling, the camera records everything. We are naturally selective, or at least I am personally, as to what I see. You start forming ideas and opinions about people or circumstances or whatever they're saying. When you see it taped back, you see other things. I was amazed at how beautiful everybody came across. And even people who one might have a sort of natural small prejudice against when you first meet them, or you form an opinion, that's wiped out. And once I got over the initial shock and gone away and slept on it, certain aspects have come back into my mind's eye. Little pictures or little ways I said something. It brought up feelings I didn't realize. I had so much anger around my mother. I thought I'd dealt with that. I haven't. And I now almost feel I don't need to feel angry about it, so that was very positive.
And it was very powerful, and it was in the middle of one of those sessions that I realized that I didn't just want to be looking at healers and talking to them about what they did, but I wanted to have people who were healing share their story. So I wanted to change the focus a little bit. But also I felt like I was just then really getting into the idea that when we were connected with our creative selves, then we also had a better chance of being fully who we were, because we could actually channel that creative energy through and feel very fulfilled, and then like we were achieving what we were here to do. So the idea of the art came in, and the heart is obviously to do with what we all need, which is the love. So it came. I also met an artist in England that used that symbol of the heart apostrophe ART, and she gave me permission to use it. So it just seemed to encapsulate everything that the program is all about, and for me what healing is all about. The combination of love, art, creativity, and healing from both the healer point of view and the person undergoing the healing. And when I came back to Santa Fe after that, we actually began a series of programs where I invited people to come and share their healing process, and we had a very interesting time. We started on relationships as being the sort of the focal point, and of course we found out that through our experience that our relationships were anything but healed, and we had all sorts of problems happening in the groups that we got together in the library. You remember that, Bill? You were there?
Yeah. I do.
What do you remember about that song?
Mm-hmm, yeah.
Well, what came up for me as you guys were talking is the spontaneity of it too. I mean, there were people literally show up.
And the approach taken in our meditations, in our work, is to actually balance that by exchanging energy between the male and the female partner in lovemaking, so that we can actually share our energy, blend it, and we become essentially, at that point, one energy. Very balanced yin and yang energy.
So a good deal of the work is approaching it both from a standpoint of health, physical and mental health, and from a standpoint of using sexual energy to make your own relationships more harmonious. And the work can also be done from a spiritual perspective. And I think that we are living on all these levels at the same time anyway. So it's a very effective practice for doing that.
What spiritual lineage or origin does this come from?
Well, actually, it comes from what's considered to be one of the oldest living philosophies or religions that comes out of China, which is called Taoism. And I think out of vanity or cultural egocentrism, people have always called themselves the human beings, and the way that they practice is the way, and Taoism means the way or the path.
I think one of those panels we did there, they just showed up, a couple that showed up, and then all of a sudden we did a show around it on the spot. So I think that became one of our hallmarks. I mean, it talked about, point and shoot. I mean, we did a lot of quick, creative things on the spot, just meeting people, and then bingo, we're on it. And we later, as we got to some other shows, it really proved to be valuable, because then we were actually literally out in the marketplace, places like the Whole Life Expo, this over our shoulder, where some of these things were set, and other times we were just going along and, okay, let's do this one and just see what we get. And Jonathan was always encouraging me to just go for it. I mean, he didn't believe in over-preparing. Except for on the tech side, he would do plenty on that side, but when it came to the creative side, script, storyboard, no, let's go, okay. So we seemed to gel and go well on that pace. And of course, he always would then have the power of the edit, so it wasn't going out live. We had some safety net.
Right.
And in terms of creativity and manifesting one's destiny, Bill's a great example of that, because he's in his most powerful element when he's there in the moment without preparation, interviewing someone about often spirituality or healing, and that's when he comes into his godliness, I would say. I mean, I don't know if you feel that when it's happening. But.
Well, you feel the energy, you feel coming through, and because remember, a lot of the stuff, if given just building on what I just said, if there's nothing prepared, and you watch these shows and how these things come out, you realize there's something more going on here than what was. There was no script. We were just going for it, and the things that we got, when you think back about it, you know what I mean? Some of these shows, you look at them and you realize they didn't prepare a minute for some of these things that came out, and it's just remarkable what really did happen. And I'd say we also learned a lot on the job. I mean, that was John's idea. We get in there and put these people on camera and start talking, and I think over the years we probably learned more than anybody.
Open up your hands, let your fears release, drop your weapons, shed your armor, face the world in peace. It's better